I wrote this poem I wrote it twice actually. The first time I wrote it was at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And it was just kind of a narrative that came out of me in a moment of kind of overlapping health crises for my family. One being taking my 15-month-old to the hospital for what ended up being influenza, but that was like the height of like March 2020 during the beginning of the pandemic. And in some ways, the poem just operates as a list of maladies, personal and familial. And the second time I wrote it, it was after reading Eduardo Corral's poem in his collection, Slow Lightning, Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. And the poem actually borrows a line from Corral's poem. And for some reason, reading that poem, which is driven by image and driven by language more so than narrative, allowed me to pare down what wasn't really working for the poem and let it be driven by a little bit more of a visceral imagistic as opposed to a narrative. So that's kind of what inspired the poem. I wrote it once, and then 2 years later I finally felt like I accessed the poem and was able to shape it into something I felt good about. As I age and as the ailments of life compound, which I find as of course inevitable, I've come to see the body a little bit as a kind of pathology. Like in living itself invites degradation, but at the same time, and maybe despite this, or maybe thanks to that kind of suffering, I also find myself hoping above all else just for more life. Every time some new thing sort of piles up onto my body, whether I have to carry that forever or whether I have to carry it for a few months, it's a good reminder of the fallibility of the human body, and a reminder that I just want to live. I just want more of this life, even if I have to suffer through some of it. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do with this poem. Pathology. 20 gallons of water and salt in a mildewed tub. Patellofemoral pain, blood in snot, myopic, hypertensive. I celebrate this body, pluming out different lengths of breath, like fire on wet log, like faithful river in old country. It will drown you in your own lungs. Diphenhydramine, the IV slips from her veins, and I slip to the floor. Buckets of cold light wake me, concussed. I celebrate this body. More, I beg this body. A delicious mango roils my gut, and in fever dream, ceiling fan throbs the steady drumbeat of my underworld. A screw tightens between shoulder blades, a vice jaws threading, squeak by squeak, I saw a foot through disintegrated cloth, bones broken, warped, recovered. Imagine the hobble, the sway of bundled load. In this bed of warbled breath, we are one body wrapped in a skin of brick, surviving on radio waves.